And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I know that Lethal Party is a fancy game because it comes with a sleeve. Ooh. Lethal Party is, it sounds like a very deadly game, but essentially Lethal Party, you're at a party, everyone's drinking, and there's guns laying around. And you decide to start pointing them at each other. If this sounds like the setup for a bad movie, it might also be the setup for a bad game, but it might not be. Let's look. So there's two rings of cards in the middle of the table, the blue ones in the center and the red ones around the outside. I really can't tell the difference, but I guess they just want there to be an equal distribution over the course of the game. You're going to turn over three cards that show alcohol them on some manner form. So you can see beer, brandy, and whiskey. Each player is going to get a number of sober tokens, sober markers equal, based on a number of players. So if there's 3 players, everyone gets 10. If there's 10 players, everyone gets 5 of these tokens. One player goes first. That player is going to pick 2 cards from the red area and flip them over at the same time. Okay, alcohol, nothing happens. A gun, everybody races to slap that gun while at the same time pointing their finger at somebody else. The first person to do so is going to shoot the other person. Now, if it's a gray gun, you're not actually shooting them. You're forcing them to drink something at the table. So you can say, oh, you drink the brandy. If I make you drink the brandy, you're going to lose 4 points of sober tokens. Whiskey, 3 points. Beer, only 1 sober point, but then we turn over another card. That's another beer. Drink that and turn over another card. Oh, it's a gun. Everyone slaps that gun and points at somebody else. Now, the red gun is different than the gray gun. When the red gun is slapped, whoever slaps that one first, whoever they're pointing at, rolls the red die. If this die is bigger than a number of sober markers that person owns, then the person they're pointing at dies. So the fewer sober tokens you have, the more dangerous you are with a gun. If you roll this symbol here, they die no matter how many sober tokens you have. You just accidentally pulled the trigger. When someone dies, they're out of the game. If someone loses all their sober tokens, they're out of the game. You keep going. Once all the red cards are used up, you start flipping over blue cards, which are pretty much the same thing as the red cards. Last person standing is the winner of the game. So, the cards are what they are, right? They're pretty good cards, although they have these dark backs, which is bad because they can get nicks in them, and you can see the nicks after a while. Not that really matters. You can see the cards have kind of this darkish tint to them. They're really hard to read the words Lethal Party on most tables. But the good news is when you flip them over, very easy to read what the other side of the card says. The sober tokens are all their tokens, and the red die is a fine 6-sided die. That's it. Everything fits in a small box. Well, that's that. I don't think the game is teaching any moral lessons here. If I didn't know I should not be holding a gun, shooting guns while drunk, this game is a little late to tell me that. I also don't drink or shoot guns. So the game is a slapping game. That's a kind of category where you slap stuff on the table, right? That's what this game is. This game is funny. Now, I want to hesitate to say I don't think the theme is funny, but the game itself will cause a lot of people to laugh as you slap cards and point guns at each other. It has an interesting idea, briefly, of, hey, if you point a red gun at someone, you might be losing because your sober tokens are almost gone, and therefore you're much more deadly with a red gun. But none of that matters because it's a slapping game. It's a slapping game. Slap, 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 slap. Really, that's all it is. You flip a card over, the first person hits it, points at someone else, that person is half out of the game. Because there's almost always a drink that has 4 or 5 out there, which will get rid of a lot of your tokens, and then someone else will get you. The beer cards are interesting, but there's almost always more wine out there than there are, guns, and so you're always going to pick the biggest number. There's no choice in this game. It's literally flip over cards and slap them. Sometimes 2 guns show up. Ooh, you can't have both guns because you need one hand to point at somebody else, but it's a slapping game. And slapping games are kind of like kid games. But this one here is a decidedly not kid-friendly theme. So this is more of a game for people who are drinking, maybe? As it is, it looks nice. And I thought that the idea of, the fewer tokens you have, the more dangerous you are, that might work maybe in a bigger, longer game. As it is, though, here, you are just taking your hand and hitting the table as fast as you can. And there will be some laughter, there will be some fun, but it's really not that good of a game. It's really just like an idea that's gussied up to look all fancy, like, ooh, lethal party. No, this is a silly, silly, silly game. And I'm not opposed to silly games. I like playing silly games. But this one doesn't really seem to have any kind of point. There's no real choices in the game. Yeah, this is a big pass for me. Dice Tower Judgment, funny, but a pass from me.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.